Alright, got all the berries painted, and now I'm just going to work a little tiny bit on the feet. I'm not going to spend too much time on them because they're really not a significant part. I'm lifting out a little bit. Remember, I put them in really dark, and now I'm just, with this little tiny brush, I'm lifting out a little bit where they would be catching a little bit of the light, and we'll see how well I can do it. You could always use a little bit of white if you needed to, but I think I can do it like this. So with a little patience, and again, it's not like I want them super prominent. I just want to make sure that, you know, you can see that the bird is sitting because, or the birds are sitting because they have a good grip on this branch, and it takes a little bit back and forth. This one is not really cooperating as much. I like the way the others turned out. There'll be a little bit of lightness on this one too. And I'm just using this little 03 brush. I'm not using a scrubber brush or anything like that. And then I'm gonna get some dark on it. And you always have to be careful with these little droplets that sometimes gather there on the fell. And I'm just doing a couple of vertical strokes. That one I can't really see. Just a couple, because they have, and it's really so little you can barely see it, and I also want to have a little bit darker here on this little leg, and we can use some little light gray to just give a little bit more texture possibly here to the birds. And again, this is totally optional. You don't need to do this, you don't want to. Just feel that it gives a little bit more pizzazz. Same here, back here, a little bit there. And very, very light. We can also do some here in the white, just so it's not so stark white. Again, barely. Just gives a little bit more, I feel, dimension to them. I'm going to go with a little bit of a bigger brush. I also feel that we could just, and again, let's watch out for these little droplets, could give the beak a little bit more pizzazz. And just soften the edge there. And darken a little bit there. And then there's a nice dark. So we can emphasize a little bit more here on the wings. Give them a little bit more, especially underneath some of those white ones. And I'm just doing little strokes. I'm not doing long strokes because, you know, I don't want it to be like outlined or anything like that. Just feel that that gives it a little bit more of the look. And then here, just indicate, because these kind of feathers here, they're kind of overlapping right there where the wings come out. So do a very little at a time is my best advice to you, because, you know, you don't want to overdo it. So do a little bit and then evaluate. And then you can do a little bit more and see what you think. Getting pretty good. And actually, that. And let's see what we can do with the other little guy here. Again, the same thing. Put a little bit more. Shadow, color. Just emphasize a little bit more these wings as they kind of overlap, and then we can push the tail in a little bit by also giving that a little bit more darkness. I kind of like that. And then we're going to let that dry, and while that dries, I feel that these black areas, they got very dark. So I'm just going to do some little tiny strokes with a damp brush and then lift up a little bit just to lighten it up. Not so much lighter, but, you know, just so it doesn't feel so solid. So I just wiggle my brush a little bit and just dab. It's Let's see. Yeah, I like that better. I feel that it's not much. It does give it a little bit more life, I guess is the best way to explain it. And here's also very solid. So let's lighten it up a little bit. And when you have a lot of pigment on, it's really, even if it's a staining color, it's really easy to lift. But here, remember, we used French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, and they lift very easily. And we can also kind of fuss the edges there a little bit. And the same in here. There. Yeah, I really like that. It's amazing. Just a little tiny bit like this. I like to lighten right behind the eye here so that you can see that dark eye ring. I don't know if it shows up on the camera, but right here, let's lighten up a little bit there. Okay, and then I feel I got the wings a little dark right here, so I'm gonna go in and lift a little bit on the tips of these wings here. And again, you can see I'm not using a scrubber brush or anything like that. It's just regular brush because I don't want to lift too much. It's just a little adjustment. That's all it is. There, like that. And then just go in and just give it a couple of directional strokes. I think it's about time for me to stop fiddling with this. What do you think? I think it reads very nicely. And you know, you get to a point where you got to stop because whatever you do from here on is not going to be an improvement. And you can also, it all depends on what you're going for. I was just lifting up a couple of places here where I feel that the berries got a little solid, same color. Just here you can see the finished painting. I fiddled way too long with it, but here's a close-up. I hope you had fun, and I'll see you soon in another video.